Okay, well
It's kind of
then,
like we've been doing, so it looks like it's rolling.
and gee, I got a red light and everything. This is like
See, there you go.
first class stuff. Do I?
All right,
Hi in
ladies
there. All
and
right.
gentlemen, Scott Tom.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, everybody.
So let's go ahead and start
Okay.
with when you came to KGW. What drew you to 62 KGW? What was the attraction, and how did you get that first job?
Well, all right. First of all, right out of the gate, I was catching shoplifters at Lloyd Center, but I had graduated from Benson High School and I took the radio course at Benson, and I just wanted to get my foot in the door. And I heard through connections that there was a weekend opening running. I think Bud Fremeth and Open Door. That was the program, and there was some other religious programming. And so I got hired on to do weekends, and one thing led to another. And Mike Phillips was the one that hired me, and I said, Mike, give me give me the key to the door. If I get the key to the door, I will hold on to it and the ladder, and I will climb my way to the top. And 3 days later, the phone rang and said, "We'd like to have you come work for us." It was just, and I can't tell you the amazing feeling that went through my body when I got off the phone. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it right now.
How long did you have that key? How many years?
I had that key from November 12th, 1977, until they flipped to All Talk in 1989. So I climbed that ladder, and I started at the very bottom, running tapes and public service shows on the weekends. And then I got a break. I got a break. They had rearranged the public service programming on the weekends to where American Top 40 came on Monday morning at 2 a.m. and I started at 12:30 at night. And I'll never forget this. I got a memo saying Scott Tom will handle on-air duties from 12:30 to 2 a.m. I got a 90-minute on-air break, and I do remember, I think, talking to you, Brian.
Yeah, I was on the shift right before you at that point.
And I remember you giving me some pointers. You gave me some tips on what to say and how to sound, and I'll never forget that. And on the memo, Mike had written in, and I wish I had that memo today, "Good luck, kid. I think you can handle it." And that was the beginning of my career there. And I was calling friends at 1 in the morning. "Hey, I'm on the radio. Tune in right now. I'm on 62 KGW." It was huge. It was larger than life. And one of the things that Mike Phillips taught me is that sometimes you have to leave home to come home. And he told me that I was still very young, very green, and that I needed to get a full-time job in radio somewhere. And I did. I got a job in Seaside, KSWB in Seaside, and I said, can I keep my key? Can I come home and work weekends? And sure enough, I moved to Seaside, kept my key, and every weekend I drove home and worked at 62 KGW. I lived for the weekends. I would get off at 6 a.m. Monday morning. Craig Walker would come in. We'd chit-chat a little bit, and then I'd listen to Craig and John all the way back to the coast. And I'd get back to Seaside about 8 o'clock in the morning. I'd sleep until noon, and I'd be up and on the air in Seaside. I did that for a year, and Mike Phillips was right. I got better and better and better. And I was allowed to start doing fill-in. Mark Rivers. Remember Mark Rivers?
Remember Mark. Okay.
Mark Rivers did overnights, and I did overnight fill-in like 1-2 weeks at a time, back and forth to Seaside every single night. I was going back and forth, and I got better and better. And then I left Portland, I left Seaside, went back to Portland, and then moved to Salem and worked in Salem and Dallas, Oregon, KBZY and KWIP. Can I hold on to my key? And I held on to that key and continued to do more regular air shifts. I got to do more and the earlier you were on the air, you were getting good. You knew if you went on the air 6 to 10 or 2 to 6 in the afternoon, you knew that you were getting good, because only the cream of the crop went on the air at 62 KGW. And finally, Phillips left, and I don't know, I may have gone through another program director or two, but then Bill Minkler was hired. And that was my big break, Mike. Brian, that was my big break. Bill wanted to hire a second Skyview traffic reporter, and I was the guy. I was hired to do full-time, and it took about 5 years of doing part-time, but I was hired to do full-time Skyview traffic, and I'd fly every afternoon and every morning, which was classic because 62 KGW was a full-service radio station that had a full news department, news vehicles, and we had an airplane and a 62 KGW helicopter. And so when the weather was bad, we got to fly in the helicopter. It was so cool. And I did Skyview. I don't know if you were still there when I did Skyview, but I know a lot. John Williams said, "Oh, you've crossed the line. You are now a traffic reporter. You'll never be a disc jockey again." Do you remember that?
I do, yeah.
And they said, "You'll never be a disc jockey again." I go, "You watch me."
Yeah, sometimes you can get buttonholed if you let yourself, right?
Exactly. And that's what I was kind of afraid of that. But Bill Minkler was just an extraordinary program director. He always thought out of the box. And Bill started having me come in to do mornings for Craig Walker. When Craig would go on vacation, I would come in and do mornings for Craig Walker. And Bob Parker was our traffic guy, so I was his partner. And the commuter computer. You remember the Skyview commuter computer was a Texas Instruments calculator, and we had viewpoints along the highway, and we timed the cars, and that's how the computer calculated how long it would take you to get. Anyway, I had been passed over for full-time positions over the course of the years, and I had just decided, working at KGW was so much fun. I just decided, let my hair down, have fun. And so when I'd go in to do mornings for Craig, I'd screw around, and I think Lyle Arthur was the morning news guy, and we'd have so much fun. And Jim Donovan was doing afternoons, and he quit to go over to KEX, I think.
KCNR first.
KCNR first. Wherever he quit, 62 KGW, I didn't even apply. I didn't even apply for the job. Bill Minkler and Craig Walker took me out for lunch, or took me out for drinks, and offered me the job. And I'll never forget this. I had really no experience negotiating or anything. It was just one of those things where they took me down to Cassidy's, and Bill Minkler and Craig Walker and I sat at the bar, and Bill went to the restroom, and Craig said, "Okay, now Bill's going to come back and he's going to offer you afternoons. I'm going to leave so you guys can talk business, and he's going to ask you how much you're going to cost him." And he goes, "I want you to stand firm." He goes, "That job is worth $80,000 if it's worth a dime. Don't take anything less than $80,000. I didn't know if it was a prank, if he was yanking my chain. And at the time, I don't know, I was making $25,000 or $28,000 or $80,000. Bill Minkler comes back to the bar. Craig Walker leaves. He says his goodbyes, and Bill Minkler looks me straight in the eye and he goes, "So how much is it going to cost me to have you do afternoon drive?" And I looked at him and I said, $80,000 a year, I think, is a fair salary. And without blinking an eye, Bill Minkler looked at me square in the face and he goes, "Well, you know what? I think it's worth twice that. I think it's worth twice that." And I almost peed my pants until Minkler said, "Of course I can't pay you that. I think it's worth twice that. But, we're looking closer to 35. I don't remember what we finalized. I know it was in that window, but even so, back then, that was a lot of money for a kid that was my age. And then to get to do afternoon drive on 62 KGW was the most amazing feeling. I was a little green still. That was my first full-time gig. Afternoon drive, went from a 7-1 to a 9-5, and you know what? I got moved to overnights. And you know why? That damn Steve Lloyd. Steve Lloyd came in and ruined my life. Not really. Steve Lloyd was really a seasoned afternoon. Steve is a seasoned radio vet, and I was just a little green. So Minkler, God bless him, called me into his office and said, "You just need a little more seasoning, so I'm going to move you to overnights." And Steve Lloyd came in and did afternoons. That was an ego blow that I didn't think I was going to be able to survive it. But I went on to do overnights, 2 to 6 a.m. for 3 years. It was the best experience of my life. I had so much fun. I got to see Craig every morning, and ultimately that led to a 7 to midnight. And then I went to do middays. I did middays, and then toward the end, when they were going to go to All Talk, I went to mornings. I was the last morning guy, not the official morning guy, but they were transitioning to talk, and I have the humble distinction of being the last morning guy on the air at 62 KGW before they flipped it to the talk station, and it was an extraordinary experience, one of the greatest, if not the greatest radio station in history, and the people were phenomenal, cream of the crop professionals, and I will go to my grave knowing that I was surrounded by wonderful people, and I got to be a part of it. Something that I will always cherish, being a part of 62 KGW. One of my fondest memories of 62 KGW was the Fort Vancouver 4th of July celebration. Every year, over 100,000 people would pack Fort Vancouver. And not only was it the largest fireworks display west of the Mississippi, but 62 KGW was the radio sponsor, and they did it right. I mean, we had the helicopter in the sky. We had big grids that lit up fireworks at 62 KGW. I remember a crane lifted this thing up, and they ignited it, and it was a firework display of our winter sticker, the famous red sticker. And I sat there in awe, and I looked at that, and I go, I work there. That's my life. 62 KGW was my life, and I remember flying in that helicopter over the crowds and seeing the massive thousands of people, and I knew that those people were there having a great time, a lot of which we had something to do with. They were there because of us and what we did for the community and for the city. And what other radio station could close down an interstate freeway so we could have a party on the Glenn Jackson Bridge? I-205 shut down for 62 KGW so we could have a grand opening party.